Hello, everyone, and welcome to Harbor Time Strategy Talks. I'm your host, Colin Harbor, and today we're going to have a high energy session, so get ready. I've met our guest Leslie in the past. We actually live in the same neighborhood. We both have children that are the same age, and so we've seen each other out socially. But I haven't really ever looked at what she does for business and business owners to help them grow. So we'll get to that in a minute, but get ready for some high energy strategy talk and motivation. As a reminder, I kicked off a few weeks ago the Vulnerability Tour 2021, where we're looking at several roadblocks, several issues that we will face in 2021. It's based off a book my father wrote in 2005, but it's extremely applicable today. We've already covered failure and criticism and how we can overcome those. We're going to look at communication, anxiety, envy, immobilization, indecisiveness, and self-pity. So this week, communication will be rolling out, but keep looking for that. I've really enjoyed putting it together, and I think it will help us grow. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like, share, and comment. I always appreciate the feedback, and I appreciate you sharing the podcast and the video and the content with others. So thank you. Thank you for listening. So another point, today, March 8th, is International Women's Day. Now, this video won't be released and the podcast won't be released after that, until after March 8th. But I understand that, Women's Day is very important. I have two daughters. I have a wife. And, while I don't always pay attention to women's stuff going on, it is great to have an International Women's Day. I went out to the internationalwomensday.com website, and it is marked annually on March 8th as one of the most important days of the year to celebrate women's achievements, to raise awareness about women's equality, to lobby for accelerated gender parity, and to fundraise for female-focused charities. It's also March, here in the United States, Women's History Month. So I am glad that I have a woman on the podcast today, and we're celebrating those things. It actually was not intentionally planned out that way, but when I was looking at the calendar, I thought, wow, that's appropriate. Let me go ahead and introduce Leslie. Leslie Hassler is a dynamic author, speaker, and business strategist guiding women-owned, service-based businesses into more profits, cash flow, and success. Business owners come to Leslie seeking a way to strategically scale their businesses richly, stop the money leaks, which is ever important, and get back in control with confidence. Using her more than 12 years of experience in business, finance, mindset, and more, Leslie takes multiple 6- and 7-figure businesses from cash-strapped and struggling to profitable and thriving with her unique scaling-rich method, which we'll talk some about today. She's also been featured on stages, podcasts, and publications around the United States. And like I said, she just happens to live in my neighborhood. And so I bump into her from time to time. And I'm glad to have her on the podcast. Hey, Leslie, how's it going?
Howdy, Colin. Good to be here.
Well, I am glad you're here today. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Leslie Hassler and what do you do?
Who is Leslie Hassler? Wow, that's a big question. So, who am I? In the context of business, I've been an entrepreneur for 14 years. I've had two businesses, YourBizrules, the current one. We've been involved with for 7 years. So when we chatted before, I told you I was unemployable, and that's probably because I've been an entrepreneur for so
I know that
long.
feeling sometimes.
So I really I love what I do. This working with small businesses, it's my playground, so to speak. And I think what makes me a little different from maybe some other strategists or coaches or consultants out there is that I've walked so much of the walk that my clients are going through. And so I wish I could say that business ownership was hunky dory every day of the week. but it's not, because it involves people, and there's clients, and there's vendors, and I mean, there's just so many ways that things can go sideways. So really, being able to help my clients manage those things as they pop up and continue to get growth while being profitable, that's really good work, but it's really tricky work for some. So we really just keep it real. I will forever share. I love the qualities you were talking about earlier from your father's book. I was like, yep, every one of those sounds like entrepreneurship. You know,
Hmm.
everything there we have to deal with. I love working with service-based businesses. I always say, if it's your head, your heart, or your hands that produces your product, then we also have some interesting limitations on the business and how we can grow. But most of all, you know, what we can see of other businesses out there doing good things, they typically are either technology, medical, or product based business. And while we can learn from them, there's some adjustments that has to happen in those strategies to work in a service based business.
Yeah, I know, and I know what you're saying about walking the walk and having been through those things. As a matter of fact, the reason I started this podcast last summer was I was consulting with a couple of small businesses from a marketing strategy and just expanding their scope. And I thought, hey, some of my clients may come to me eventually and say, how can we get the word out about our business more? So I started a podcast to learn and to grow and to go through those experiences so that I could apply that to clients in the future. But what I want to start with today is I was reading your website this weekend and going through some stuff getting ready for today is the Scaling Rich Personality Quiz. What is it and why? Why do
Yeah.
you have that now?
Well, okay, so what is it? It's a great, easy quiz that we have developed to really help people understand where they are, and so that they know what to do. You know, what's crazy to me is that we've got this bulging beginning when it comes to business ownership, and that's 83%, 81% of businesses below six figures. Once you get into six figures, suddenly it drops to like 2% at the 250 to 500 stage, 2% at the 500 to
Mhm.
750 stage, you know, one or two going up, and then another 9% at the 2.5 million. So there's this big gap in between, and that's where we love to do our work. And so the quiz is just, you know, it's fun. It'll give you your personality type. It'll help you become somebody that can go through the missing middle and really get into the highest level of business for yourself. So we have lots of tools. I was telling you before we got started, I give things away, and this is just a way that I can make sure that what we give to you is exactly what you need right now.
I know a lot of people can use that help. A lot of business owners, they go into business, they have a purpose. One of my previous guests even talked, maybe they have a social agenda or they're an entrepreneur and they want to make a change, but as the business starts to grow, they either get stuck or they don't really know how to scale. So it's great to know that there's tools like this out there available. And I know we talked a little bit in the who and why of Leslie Hassler in your business, but let's expand a little bit more about how you came up with the concept for this business. How did you decide, outside of the fact that you're unemployable? I guess you weren't that way initially, but how did you come up with the concept for the business?
No. So, a lot of it I always say is God led, because I did have another business at the time. We started that business in '07, went skyrocketed. I mean, like really fast growth there. And I will tell you, I thought I was the bomb.com.
Hmm.
I was the shizzle. And when the market crashed in '08 and '09, my business crashed with it. And so that was a journey of 2 years that I punished myself by stop paying myself. I paid everybody else, but I didn't feel like I had earned my pay or earned my keep in my business. And so I spent 2 years really doing the right things, but doing them at the wrong time or in the wrong way in my business, and they never worked. And so I decided to get help. And 6 months later, we grew the business back 150%. And that's stellar. I mean, that's a great story. But at the end of the day, I did not love my business. It
Right.
sucked more of my soul than it fed my soul. And so I went into 2 years of conversation with God where I really was like, okay, what is it that I love about what I do? What is it? Do I want to go back and get a job? What is it? If it's not this, what I was doing, then what is it? And I came to terms with the fact that I love business. It's a puzzle to me that I love to solve. I'm fascinated, utterly fascinated with the variations to business. There's more than one way to bake a cake, and your business can be the exact right flavor for you.
Hmm.
And then it's just in the work with women and women entrepreneurs. I think because I understand what it's like to raise a family. My kids are now in high school and I'm looking at them going off to college. But when I first started, my kids were 7, 1, and 3, and I know what it's like to go through that and juggle the roles and juggle all the expectations. Plus, we tend to I think we're a lot harder on ourselves mentally and what we take personally, and um, that kind of evolution that has to happen for you to become an effective leader in your business. So that's why I work typically with women, although I do work with some guys. But
I was going to
we
ask you
generally
that. I
just
was
tend
going
to
to
have
ask you that if it's,
very, yeah,
yeah. Okay. I was going to ask if it's women exclusive,
yeah,
or if a male entrepreneur came to you and said, "Hey, I need help," you're able to help them too.
yeah. Good marketing picks a spot in the sand and plants your flag, so to speak. But that doesn't mean that people that are a little bit on the outside can't come in too. So when we do have gentlemen that come and work with me, what it typically is that they've got a very strong family value and they want to be present and part of their family, not working away in their business like crazy. And they have big financial or legacy impact goals. And so it's, you mentioned a little bit of the social calling ahead of this conversation. So that's exactly what they're looking for. So they really identify with those elements of our marketing message.
So I recently read a quote from Helen Keller, and she
Okay.
said many, many years ago, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision.
Mm.
So, what is your guiding vision?
Our guiding vision is about empowering prosperity for every business. And I love that quote that you shared because it's so true. Your vision is your beacon. It's the thing that gets you through the dark days. It's the thing that is your guidepost, if you will, your North Star. And I do think for a lot of business owners, they can see, but they don't have vision. And if you get beat down enough in your business, it may be hard to feel like you can have a vision, but we can reignite it. It's just things are so much out of our control, not that they were ever really in our control. And that guiding vision is your strategic intention, and without it you'll get blown across the ocean and wind up somewhere that you don't want to be. But with it you have such a stronger, I don't know, steel to your backbone, fire in your belly. It really is crucial for business owners to define.
Yeah, vision is key. There are so many great quotes about vision, but this one with that Helen Keller had just really resonated with me over the last few weeks, and I'm glad we were able to discuss that today. So we've all, well, any entrepreneur, any business owner, really anybody can face challenges or surprises or anything like that on any given day. We all faced a big challenge and surprise about a year ago, almost to the day, quite frankly. But what has been your biggest
Yeah.
surprise in the last few months and why? And you can't say COVID. Maybe it could be related to COVID, but what has been your biggest surprise in the last few months and why?
So it's not COVID at all. I was actually preparing for
Okay.
something before COVID even hit. So we can talk about that in a minute. But I think for me, where we've been using this time to really do is dig down and serve our clients even deeper, to help them navigate these kind of crazy waters. But it's also been in looking at like I just had an opportunity to really go, okay, is this what I want to continue doing? And how long do I want to continue to do it? And I came back into the fact that, yeah, we've got work to be done. And I've got 10 years to do it. And that's not as much time as one might think. And so
Right.
we've really doubled down on our amplification and our expansion and getting the good word out, if you will. And that, what's been surprising to that is the extensiveness to the amount of things that we've done. We haven't been doing too many things, like maybe three major strategies, but it's the extensiveness of what we've had to do behind those strategies to be effective. That
Hmm.
has blown me over. We've started one piece about a year ago in May, and I hope to be finished by May. It's just that big. And I think that's the thing. Like when you first start putting strategy to work in your business, yeah, go for the easy wins, the low hanging fruit, nail it, uh, just do well there. But as you mature in your business, your strategies do take a longer time to implement and stay on the course for. I know a lot of business owners that they wouldn't be able to stay on the course for a year to see something through for fruition, and it's paying off, but it just takes longer.
Yeah, and you talk about the business owners. Sometimes it's difficult them to see that long game, maybe, or even if you want to call a year an interim game, to be able to stay focused for that. So I want to spend a little bit of time then talking about entrepreneurs and business owners, and this can be applied to leaders of corporations as well, and in all levels. But what are the biggest obstacles to success for entrepreneurs right now, 2021?
Mm. So I think it's three things, three M's, if you will, to make it easy to
Okay.
remember. So the first is going to be motivation. Um, Really being able to rekindle your own fire. As a leader, you and a business owner, you're responsible for really helping inspire and motivate and, engage your team. And that is a huge energetic effort that you've got to be able to maintain your own motivation, because the minute it wanes for you, everybody else is going to fall behind you. So
Mhm.
that's the first one. The second is the money side of thing. I think for especially a lot of business owners, we've seen why you need to have things like a cash flow in your business, what that tool can do for you. A lot of my clients they'll say, I'm not a numbers person. I'm like, great, you don't have to be. But as a
Right.
leader, you need to have a dashboard, right? That tells you when your business is about to run on empty. And then the last one I will say is mindset. It's always success, almost always comes down to mindset. Do you believe or not believe? Henry Ford has a quote that says, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And I find
Yep.
that that plays out true for so many people. So you do have to work on that. Every time you either recover or up level or look for growth, you're going to have to up level your mindset around it and what you believe and don't believe is possible.
So I think mindset of all of those, they're all important. To me, mindset is probably the most important, at least for me right now. And Instagram and all these different social medias, if you look for mindset or success mindset, those are some of the most heavily tagged hashtags. And I've been tagging a lot to success
Yeah.
mindset because I think for me as a business owner, for you as a business owner, for whoever else, I think that is so key, because if you're not of the right mindset, it's almost like nothing else can happen, right? Nothing else. Maybe you can go through the motions, maybe you can run on fumes for a while, but at some point, if your mindset's not right, I think you're going to run into a big brick wall.
Yeah, there's a little formula that I like to share, which is B, so the word
Okay.
BE times do, BO equals have. And we're all really good at the action part of it, but we're not so good at that believe part of it. And I've seen clients where we've like tripled their leads coming into the business, but because they believed no one would buy, no one
Hmm.
bought. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you've got that going on, likely you've got to change what you do
Change your
first
mindset.
in order to
Absolutely.
see it.
Absolutely. And it
Yep.
applies to everything. I actually had a podcast guest a couple weeks ago from Estonia, and it was when we had the bad weather here in Dallas, and I was just misery that we were in the low single digits here, and just telling her all that. And she said, well, Colin, it's negative 20 degrees here, but it's sunny outside. We say all you need to do is have a good jacket.
Yeah.
I butchered it, but she said something
Yeah.
like that. But again, that's a mindset. That's not a business mindset, but that's just a mindset on life. You got to look at the positive
Yep.
things. So what action should a business owner be, or business owners be taking right now to focus on the 3 M's, or to improve their business, or to look at cash flow? What are some things? What action? If there's one that you like to focus on, do that. Or if there's a couple, do that as well.
Yeah, so there was a Harvard Business Review article written in the early 2000s called "Roaring Out of a Recession," where they looked at basically the 80s, the 90s, or the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Those were economic events, and they said, "What is it that made a difference?" If what was, and basically what they found is 74% of businesses never really regained their steam. They may be fine, but they don't regain the steam that they had before that economic event. 17% just go away. Well, we're up to about 22, but the remaining percentage, those are the people that thrive and come out of it roaring, and what was it they do? So I loved what they said. And it says, it's really interesting that you have to be comprehensively offensive and conservatively defensive. So it's as long as you can do things like hang on to people, because people, the training and the onboarding and the hiring process, they most business owners just and leaders forget to monetize what that expense is, and it's a hefty investment. So if you can
Sure.
hold on to that as long as you can, right, and be restrained in that defensive cost cutting procedure, then you're going to come out of this better. The other part is, that comprehensively offensive. It's basically don't put all your eggs in a basket, and don't bet
Mm-hmm.
on one savior thing that if it takes off, it's going to work fabulous. Be smart. Spread things around. Look for the things that do quick wins. Look for the productivity strategies that really, your team has time on their hands. Great. Remember that technology that you wanted to invest in 2 years ago that nobody had time for? Wow, what a great time to create change in your business. So it's it's that idea of being very strategic, very mindful, but not doing anything crazy. Don't go, overboard on your spending, and don't go overboard on your cutting.
I've done crazy in the past, and crazy doesn't work. Trust me, right? You need to definitely be strategic about it. I've tried the crazy path it had good motives. It was to diversify a business that I used to have, but I went down a path on one thing. I don't even want to go into it. So what are the biggest,
You live
or
and
what's
learn.
that?
I said you live and
Oh, I
learn.
definitely learned. I still hear about it from my wife regularly. What blind spots for you? What blind spots do you see across the board for businesses right now?
The biggest blind spot really is around the numbers of the business. And like we mentioned before, a lot of people will say, well, I'm not a numbers person. The truth is you need to have a dashboard. The rate of change, the type of change that we've seen in the last year, guess what? That really wasn't new. That's been impacting small business for a really long time, and it's not going to change. There was one statistic I read that said that basically the technology advancement that we saw in 2020 was 5 times the rate that we've seen over the last year or even the previous years. So that acceleration of change is going to happen. You need the tools in place, either KPIs, cash flow, a strategic plan so you can measure where you are, where have you gone off track in order to navigate the waters. Because I've always seen business as the wild, wild west. I never have seen business as this thing you could count on. And I just see so many people that counted on it without paying attention to it. And so
Mm-hmm.
you do these things. I'll give you an example, Colin. So one of my clients, when we first started working together, they were down to 9 days cash on hand. We put a tool into place that had them up to about 30 days cash on hand, which is actually above average for small businesses,
Mm-hmm.
right before the COVID hit and they shut down and they lost. I mean, it was a big impact for them. Um, that one tool is how they stayed in business. And by the end of last year, they were back up to 45. So they went down to 6 days because they've got a huge team, right? And they were back to 45 at the end of the year. If they had been too afraid to pay attention, they would have had to close their business. But they just were diligent and worked the problem every day that they could work on, gave themselves grace, and they're still here while their competition has been falling away. So, once everything's back up and running, it's almost like they can eat as much as they can go do business as much as they want to.
Yeah. I,
So you have to put these things into place.
Yeah, I hear when with that story, I hear think strategically, think strategically, plan, do the right things, put the right tools in place so that you can survive, grow, and flourish. So I had
Yep.
a podcast guest once, but he's a
Oh.
leadership guy, and he was talking about leaders should continue to grow and leaders should continue to develop themselves,
Mm.
and for those who hadn't developed themselves and continued to grow up until when COVID hit and basically everybody had to spread out and go do other things, he said a lot of people were exposed. People were exposed because they
Yeah.
did not self develop. This next question is about a little bit about self development, but just about things in general. How do you stay on top of things? How do you continue to grow or learn about things?
I'm always learning. I say I go through these binge modes where I'm either like binging on books or I'll do videos somewhat, but I tend to learn a little bit more from the reading aspect versus the listening aspect. And I just binge and I read really interesting books. They're interesting to me. I've read Blitzscaling. That was a great book that taught me a few things of really how to maybe position things better for my clients. There's so much good thought out there that we can, as one person, never know it all. So I always say constantly be learning, but also constantly be implementing. So if all you ever
Mm-hmm.
do is learn, but you never implement, then, great, you've got some learning, but we're not putting any proof to the pudding. And if all of you ever do is do but never learn, then you're just stuck in the same hamster wheel cycle of doing the same things the same way. So I like to balance. I tend to go through about 6 months of binge learning and then about 9 months of implementation and figuring out how I can make that learning work for me.
That's a great model. I hadn't thought about it that way. Always be implementing. So, yeah, you, you read a book. So what? How are you going to apply it, right? Or if you're a listener, if you listen to a book or listen to a podcast, how are you going to implement it? You've got to spend. Sounds like in your case, you've got a model where you're spending a little bit more time on implementation than learning, which is really great. A great strategy.
Well, I'm always people get mad at me because I have books I never finish because I got what I needed and I stopped reading to go implement
Yeah,
it.
I'm like that too. I think probably more people are like that than admit it. Where you'll start a book, you get a couple, 3 chapters in, or however many, or you focus on one section, and then you hear about another book, and then you hear about another book, or you get into a great article, or you get into all these things. You mentioned that you like learning more from a reading standpoint. Recently, this is just a side note. I joined Clubhouse. Are you familiar with that new social media
Yeah,
platform? Are you on there?
I am not because I do not own any Apple devices.
Oh, okay,
So
that's
as soon
right.
as they welcome it out, as soon as they welcome the rest of us into there, I am definitely diving in. But yeah, for now, no.
Okay, well, I'm still trying to figure it out. I keep jumping on it, and then somebody will call or somebody will do something. I think it's one of those where you just have to dedicate some time, get out there, and jump right in. If someone wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do it? How can someone reach out to you if they want to talk or connect?
Well, as always, we'd love to have you do the Scaling Rich quiz as part. If you do sign up to get the resources, you'll have a great way to get in touch with me because I monitor all those emails. So if you hit reply on anything, I'm the one that's answering you. So that's good. And then, as always, yourbizrules.com is our main website where we have ton of resources. If you're wanting to know how I might be able to help you, there's a way for you to just say let's chat and find some time, and then we'll just chat. We'll see if it makes good sense to work together.
Yeah, and I'll put up the yourbizrules.com on the video. And does that have a link to the Scaling Rich Quickly quiz?
Yeah, so everything's pretty well integrated. In fact, if you go to scalingrich.com, you'll go straight to the quiz. But if you go to the main website address, there's a button right in the middle, and you just say take the quiz, and it'll take you there too.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude now. And I'm going to say, if you're not energized right now, if you're not excited, particularly if you're a business owner, if you haven't taken something from this and thought, hey, I hadn't thought about it that way, I want to go out and do it now, or I need to always be implementing. I need to come up with a 12-month strategy. I need a strategy that I can see through, various things like that. Then I think you weren't listening. This was great. I am so glad I had the opportunity to connect with Leslie, particularly about business. Like I said, we've met before in the neighborhood at some social outings back when we used to get to go out to social outings. Hopefully, I know it's a serious deal, but hopefully we'll be able to do that again soon. Leslie, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your energy with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And for all the listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, or comment. And you can shoot me an email. You can go to colinharbor.com if you'd rather do it that way. I'd love to hear from you, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.